Whatever happened to defense in the NBA? This season, more than any recent season in a lot of people's eyes, mine included, is that 40-point and 50-point games are no longer a outlier whenever it happens, because it happens almost on a nightly basis. For the past week, I think there's been like 3 or 4 50-point games, and usually we might get 3 or 4 in the entire season, but it's just kind of whatever. Who really cares? Yeah, sure, Luka last night scored 50 points and he was shit talking. Is that really that impressive anymore? Once every single person in the league that's a superstar seems to get at least 30 every night. I don't really know. Whenever everyone is just talking about how bad the defense is nowadays, I could really sympathize with it, because it truly is pretty atrocious. Because you see a lot of guys who don't really care about defense anymore, and I'm pretty sure I have figured out the reason. Do you ever see the guy who scores maybe 8 points a game, 10 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block maybe, get that max contract? I don't think so. He'll probably get maybe like whatever is typical for a 3-and-D player. Something that like 15 to 20 mil per season, which, don't get me wrong, I'd love to make 15 or 20 million in 1 year, but that's just not really what I'm built for. I'm not that guy. It's interesting to see that those types of players don't really matter anymore, and as you're looking at the younger generation of NBA players, just how many people are being that gritty defensive player, other than like Walker Kessler or like Cam Thomas on the Nets, or I don't know, like Evan Mobley, but all those guys are bigs. Where's that guard who's just locked down? Sure, you could say, I don't know, like Desmond Bane, he's pretty good at defense, but it's like he also has an offensive side of the ball, and I feel like if a guy is trying so hard on offense every possession, he's not going to be able to put his 100% into it on defense. And if everyone is thinking about their bag, they're going to be thinking about, oh, well, I have a family to take care of, which I completely understand, but they're not going to really be focusing too much on defense, because the players with really good offensive skills are getting paid, sometimes 20 to 30 million more just because they could put the ball in the bucket. If a player is getting, 20 points a game, 5, maybe 3 to 5 rebounds and 6 assists, maybe 8, then that guy's probably getting paid, I want to say, just around 25 to 30 mil a year. That'd be yeah, probably right there, because the max contract keeps on going up and up, because Curry and LeBron are both making 50 within the next 2 years, and Damian Lillard I think is making 50 pretty soon. Another big problem is this highlight culture we're kind of in right now, where everyone just wants to get on House of Highlights, because that's how you become known, and the more known you are, the more sponsorships you get. And obviously, I'm not saying that, some guy that only like actual NBA fans know about is going to get, the shoe deals or get to be on the Wheaties box, but I don't think they should be excluded from being popular players just because they don't really focus on offense. You don't really see defensive players just get in the All-Star game, but you see guys who score like everything, but they are an absolute liability on defense, end up getting into the All-Star game. Sometimes they're starters, like a good example is, I love Luka Doncic, but he's a liability on defense. James Harden, it's the same thing. Obviously they're similar types of players. They play the game very similarly, Like, Luka's kind of having the season that Harden had in like 2017, 2018 right now. But because the way the games has changed, even from 2018 till now, like that's just 5 years now. And it's just changed so dramatically. And obviously it's a huge talking point. The overall points per game is increasing. Like it's like between the two teams, let me get the actual stat. So in 2018, teams were averaging 112.4 per game. And now it's 113.8. And I know this isn't, an insane rise, but it is the highest in the modern era. And that's, it's the highest total since 1970. And personally, I believe actual basketball begins when Magic Johnson got in the league. Because before that, it was kind of just a couple guys dominating. You didn't really have the most talented athletes all going into basketball. That's when no one was playing defense, because no one really knew how to play defense. But then in the 80s, it just dropped. The average scoring just went under because everyone was playing defense. You saw a similar rise in scoring, kind of like in the late 90s, like creeping into the 2000s, like maybe 2000. And then defensive players started to become more prominent again. And then in 2000s, scoring dipped again. And I really think that, I hope that scoring is going to take a dip within the next 5 to 10 years. And then defensive players are actually going to start getting encouraged more to play defense. Because once every team has a guy that can score 30 consistently every single night, like you got, I think, 12 players averaging over 30 this year, which is insane because just 10 years ago you had maybe 2, 3 at the most, but it was like usually like LeBron, KD, and maybe like some stunning season from someone else. It's slipping my mind right now. But if every team actually cares about defense again, I think it's going to be a little bit more interesting, because obviously you see the same problem in the NFL. Teams don't really give a shit about defense anymore because that's not really what drives viewership. What drives viewership is offense. The more points scored, the more touchdowns, the more breakaway running plays, gets more eyeballs on the screen. And if the NBA wants to keep up, they also need to favor the offensive end. That's another reason why you see so many fouls getting called. That's why you see so many people flopping just so they can get to the line so they can improve their averages. And also, you don't really see too many people on all NBA teams who are averaging less than 20 points, unless they're a center and they just had like a really good defensive year. It's kind of like the Rudy Gobert, like he's been on a couple all NBA teams. I'm not super sure if it's like it's usually like second or third team. I don't know how many times he's been on first. I don't even know if he's been on first team. I can understand the viewpoint that he's not very fun to watch just because he plays defense, and a lot of the time, unless you're focusing on the specific player for the entire defensive possession and you're not really watching the ball, you're not going to really see what he's doing. He's like kind of pushing a guy in a corner. He's not letting him leave the corner. Once he gets the basketball, then you can actually see him play defense. But defense isn't just an on-ball thing, and that's what a lot of casual viewers fail to realize. I just made this video because I think that defense is obviously lacking this year, but I really hope and pray that it's going to make a major comeback, but that will come at the expense of a lot of newer fans. But I don't really care personally. Anyways, my name's Luke, and I'll see you later.